A millionaire visited a nursing home to make a donation but was surprised to find his mother, who had been missing for 40 years, and what she told him made him cry. Leonardo parked his luxury car in front of the Santa Clara nursing home, a simple but well-kept place surrounded by white walls and flower gardens. He adjusted the knot of his tie as he glanced in the rearview mirror. At 45, Leonardo was the kind of man who drew attention wherever he went. Tall, with dark hair beginning to grow silver, he carried in his gaze a mixture of confidence and loneliness. This donation is just a formality, he thought to himself as he got out of the car. In the back seat, a black briefcase contained documents and a generous check, part of his strategy to improve the public image of the hotel chain he had built practically single-handedly. But something inside him seemed uncomfortable. It wasn't just the weight of the work or the demands of the corporate world. It was something deeper, something he couldn't name. The director of the nursing home, Mrs. Irene, a woman in her 60s with round glasses and a warm smile, greeted him at the entrance. "Welcome, Mr. Leonardo. It's an honor to have you here with us." "Thank you, Mrs. Irene. I hope this contribution will help to further improve the work you do here," Leonardo replied, trying to sound friendly, although his words carried a certain formal tone. As they walked through the hallways of the nursing home, Leonardo observed the elderly sitting in rocking chairs reading books or talking to each other. There was something in their eyes that touched him in an inexplicable way. It was as if each wrinkle told a story, a secret kept for years. He tried to push that thought away, but something there made him feel strangely nostalgic. "These elderly people deserve dignity and comfort," Mrs. Irene said, interrupting his thoughts. "And your donation will ensure that for a long time to come." Leonardo nodded, but before he could answer, his eyes were drawn to a lady sitting near the window. She was wearing a faded blue dress and holding an unfinished piece of embroidery in her trembling hands. There was something about her that made him freeze for a moment. A shiver ran down his spine, as if he had known her from somewhere far in the past. As Leonardo watched the lady in the blue dress, something inside him seemed to want to scream. He shook his head slightly, trying to shake off the strange feeling. "Mrs. Irene, who is that lady over there by the window?" he asked, pointing discreetly. "Ah, that's Mrs. Lucy," Mrs. Irene replied with a gentle smile. "She's been with us for a few years. She's a very sweet woman, but, well, sometimes she seems a little distant, as if she's always lost in thought." Leonardo frowned. There was something about the way she looked out at the garden that bothered him. It was as if her eyes held an old, almost palpable sadness. Without thinking much, he walked towards her, leaving Mrs. Irene behind. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Lucy," he said politely, approaching slowly. "My name is Leonardo." The lady turned her face slowly, and when her eyes met his, something changed. She stared at him for a long moment as if trying to decipher something about him. Then suddenly her lips trembled in a fragile smile. "Leo," she whispered, her voice soft and hesitant. Leonardo felt his heart skip a beat. How do you know that nickname?" Lucy did not answer immediately. Her eyes filled with tears as she reached out a trembling hand to touch his arm. "Leo, my Leo," she murmured as if the words were an echo of buried memories. That left him completely disconcerted. Since he was a child, he had grown up believing that his parents had died in a tragic car accident. His Aunt Catherine, his mother's sister, had been the one who raised him after the supposed incident. She had always told him that he was too young to understand the details, that it would be better to forget the past and move on. And that was exactly what he had done. He had built his life, his fortune, and his identity. But now, in front of this lady he barely knew, something inside him was beginning to question everything. "Ma'am, what do you know about that nickname?" he asked again, his voice more urgent now. Lucy just shook her head as if she were caught between confusing memories and painful feelings. You've grown so much," she said, almost in a whisper. "But I've never forgotten you, my boy." Leonardo felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to ask more questions and demand answers, but something in her gaze paralyzed him. It was as if she carried with her a secret that he desperately needed to discover. "Mrs. Lucy, I need to understand what's going on," he said, trying to remain calm. "Please tell me what you know about me." But before she could answer, Ms. Irene appeared beside him, touching his arm gently. "Mr. Leonardo, perhaps it would be best not to pressure you. Ms. Lucy has moments of lucidity, but they are rare." Leonardo looked at Ms. Irene and then back at Lucy, who now kept her eyes lowered, holding her unfinished embroidery tightly. He knew there was something there, something important, something that could change everything he believed about his life. And for the first time in years, he felt a twinge of hope and fear in his chest. In the days that followed the visit to the nursing home, Leonardo could not get Ms. Lucy out of his mind. That encounter had left deep marks on his memory, as if a locked door inside him had been opened a little, revealing secrets he never knew existed. He tried to return to the asylum several times, but he always found vague excuses from the director about Donna Lucy's unavailability. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Leonardo," Donna Irene said at one of the meetings with a kind but evasive smile. "Donna Lucy has been more reclusive lately. Maybe it would be better to wait until she is more willing to receive visitors." Leonardo frowned suspiciously. "That's strange, Donna Irene. She seemed different when we met, as if she recognized me." Donna Irene hesitated for a moment but quickly replied, "She sometimes confuses people with figures from the past. Don't take it personally, please." But Leonardo didn't accept that explanation. There was something in the way Donna Lucy had called him Leo, and in those silent tears that echoed inside him like a forgotten memory. Determined to understand what was happening, he began to investigate on his own. His first steps were to revisit his childhood, that hazy time before he was raised by his Aunt Catherine. He called a few distant relatives, asking them about the details of the accident that had supposedly killed his parents. However, his questions were met with discomfort or vague answers. It was then that he decided to confront his aunt directly. "Catherine, I need to know the truth about what happened to my parents," he said, sitting in the living room of her house, an elegant, cold mansion that had always felt more like an office than a home. Catherine looked up from her book in surprise. "Leonardo, what are you talking about? We've talked about this so many times. You know what happened. A tragic accident. Why are you bringing it up now?" "Because something doesn't make sense," he said, his voice firm. "I met a woman in the nursing home who called me by the nickname only my mother used. She knew things no one was supposed to know unless—" "Unless what?" Catherine interrupted, standing up abruptly. Her tone was sharp, almost defensive. Leonardo narrowed his eyes. "Unless she has some connection to me, to my mother." Catherine sighed, shaking her head. "You're imagining things. Those people in the asylum, they make up stories, they confuse the past with the present. Don't listen to them." But Leonardo no longer trusted her words. When Catherine left the room to take a phone call, he took the opportunity to rummage through her office. In a locked drawer, he found old documents, medical records, death certificates, and letters. Among them was something that made his heart stop, a medical report that contradicted everything he believed. "What?" he muttered, leafing through the papers with trembling hands. The document stated that his mother had not died in the accident. In fact, she had survived and was admitted to a psychiatric institution years later. The report contained forged signatures and altered dates, probably by someone who wanted to cover up the truth. It was then that he realized Catherine had lied to him her entire life. His mother was not dead, and Miss Lucy, maybe she was the key to unraveling the whole story. "You can't run away from the truth forever, Catherine," he whispered to himself, putting the documents away in his briefcase. He knew this was just the beginning, but something inside him told him he was finally on the right track. Back in the comfort of his home office, Leonardo spread the documents he had found in Catherine's locked drawer on his desk. With each page he examined, his mind whirled more and more into a whirlwind of questions and revelations. He could hardly believe what he was discovering. but he knew he couldn't ignore the evidence in front of him. Amidst the yellowed and dusty papers, something caught his eye, an old photo folded in half. He picked it up carefully as if it were made of glass. When he unfolded it, his eyes widened. It was him, still a child, sitting on the lap of a woman he immediately recognized. Despite the years, that soft face and the calm smile were unmistakable. It was his mother. The photo looked like it had been taken in a garden. He was wearing a white t-shirt and holding a red balloon in his small hands. His mother was hugging him tenderly, looking at the camera with a sparkle in her eyes that only a mother could have. On the back of the photo, there was a familiar handwriting, written in faded blue ink, "Leo and I on your 5th birthday, always together." Leonardo felt his chest tighten. That date? His 5th birthday happened after the supposed accident. He had always believed that his parents had died when he was 4 years old. But here was the proof that his mother was alive at least until that moment. A wave of emotions washed over him. Anger, confusion, sadness, and strangely, a glimmer of hope. How is this possible? He muttered to himself, running his fingers over the faded image. Why would Catherine lie about something like this? Why would I turn away from her? He remembered Donna Lucy's words at the nursing home. You've grown so much, but I've never forgotten you, my boy. Did she know who he really was? Did she know his mother? Everything seemed connected now, but there were still many missing pieces of the puzzle. With the photo in hand, Leonardo decided to return to the asylum. He needed to find Donna Lucy again. He needed to understand her role in this story. If his mother had been alive all these years, where was she now? And why had Catherine hidden this from him? Before leaving, he looked at the photo once more, as if trying to record every detail in his memory. Then, with renewed determination, he put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. He knew he was about to dive into a sea of painful truths, but he also knew there was no turning back. I will find out the truth, he said out loud, as if promising himself. No matter what it takes. Leonardo knew he needed professional help to unravel the secrets surrounding his family. He hired a private detective, someone with an impeccable reputation and meticulous skills. Carlos. He handed the detective all the documents he had found in Catherine's house, including the photo of his mother, and asked him to investigate further. I want to know everything about Lucy, Leonardo said firmly, and also about what happened to my mother after the accident. Carlos nodded, adjusting his glasses as he looked over the papers. I'll start with medical institutions and public records. Sometimes the most hidden truths lie between the lines of official documents. Days passed in silent agony for Leonardo. He could barely sleep or focus on work, his mind always returning to that image of his mother and the memory of Donna Lucy's sad look. Finally, Carlos called him, asking them to meet at a discreet cafe in the city center. I found something, Carlos said as soon as Leonardo sat down at the table. He opened a folder full of copies of documents and photos. Lucy wasn't just any old lady in the nursing home, she's your mother. Leonardo's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you sure? Absolutely, Carlos replied, pointing to a detailed medical report. Records show that she survived the accident but suffered serious injuries. Instead of receiving proper care, she was committed to a private psychiatric clinic shortly afterward, a facility run by Catherine's contacts. The commitment was declared voluntary, but there is clear evidence that she was forced. Witnesses report that she screamed for you for weeks after the accident. Leonardo felt a lump in his throat. His mother had lived all those years locked in a clinic far from him, while Catherine lied through her teeth. But why? Why would she do that? Carlos sighed, flipping through some more documents. It was all about money and power. After the accident, Catherine forged legal documents and declared Lucy incapable of making financial decisions. In doing so, she took complete control of the family fortune. She transferred property, investments, and bank accounts to herself, using corrupt lawyers to cover up her actions. Leonardo clenched his fists. trying to control the anger that was growing inside him. So my aunt stole from me. And then she lied about my own mother being dead? Yes, Charles confirmed, handing him a copy of his father's original will. Your father left clear instructions. If anything happened to him, everything was to be divided between you and your mother. But Catherine intercepted these documents before they could be made official and created a false version that completely favored her. Leonardo looked at the papers, feeling betrayed and furious. The entire life he had built, all the effort to become successful, had been based on a lie. He had not only lost his mother, he had been deceived for years by the person he trusted most. What do we do now? He asked, his voice thick with determination. Carlos closed the folder and looked Leonardo directly in the eyes. Now, we will expose the whole truth. We will gather enough evidence to ensure that Catherine faces the consequences of her actions. And we will bring your mother back to where she deserves to be, by your side. Leonardo was obsessed with finding more evidence that would confirm Catherine's scheme. He knew he needed to act quickly before she could eliminate any compromising evidence. During a visit to her home while Catherine was away for a social engagement, he decided to search every corner of the mansion. In her office, behind a heavy bookcase that he pushed with difficulty, he found something he never imagined. A safe built into the wall. It was old but still functional. Using the information Carlos had collected about Catherine's habits and secrets, Leonardo was able to deduce the combination, important dates in her life that she had always valued excessively. When he opened the heavy vault door, his heart raced. Inside was a trove of documents that confirmed everything he suspected: forged birth certificates, illegal bank transfers, contracts signed under duress, and even letters exchanged between Catherine and corrupt lawyers, detailing how they manipulated the system to declare Lucy incompetent. How could you do this? Leonardo muttered to himself, leafing through the papers with trembling hands. You stole my mother. You stole my life. At that moment, he heard the sound of the front door opening. Catherine was back sooner than he expected. With no time to hide the evidence, he quickly put the documents in his briefcase and left the office, trying to appear calm when he met her in the hallway. Leonardo? What are you doing here? She asked, surprised, but with a tone that denoted suspicion. His eyes scanned the room as if searching for something out of place. I came here looking for answers, he said, looking directly at her. His voice was firm but filled with restrained anger. And I found more than I expected. Catherine raised an eyebrow, trying to maintain her composure. What are you talking about? I'm talking about this, he replied, throwing some of the forged documents onto the living room table. Forgery of documents, illegal transfers, fraudulent statements. You stole from my mother and deceived me my entire life. Catherine looked at the scattered papers, and for a brief moment, her mask of coldness seemed to crumble. But soon, she regained her composure, crossing her arms with an almost arrogant air. So you found out, did you? The truth about Lucy? About everything? Yes, I found out, Leonardo exclaimed, approaching her. Why, Catherine? Why did you do that? She was your sister. She was weak, Catherine replied without hesitation. Her voice was sharp, full of contempt. After the accident, she couldn't even take care of herself, let alone you. Someone had to take care of things, and I did what was necessary. Necessary? Leonardo shouted in disbelief. You committed her against her will. You lied to me about her death, all to steal the family fortune. That fortune was rightfully mine, Catherine countered, her voice rising as well. Our father always preferred your mother. He always treated her like the perfect daughter, while I was left behind. When I finally had the chance to claim what was mine, I took it. And I don't regret it. Leonardo felt his blood boil. How could she be so cold? How could she justify so many years of lies and manipulation? Meanwhile, Carlos continued his investigations. He discovered detailed records of bank transfers that showed how Catherine had diverted millions into offshore accounts, using shell companies to cover her tracks. There was even evidence of family properties that she had secretly sold to fund her lavish lifestyle. When Leonardo received this new information, he knew he had enough evidence to expose Catherine once and for all. But before he could go ahead with his plan, he needed to confront her one more time. "You may have thought you could get away with this, Catherine," he said, holding the updated documents in his hands. "But now everyone will know the truth. You will pay for what you did." Catherine just smiled, a bitter, calculating smile. "We'll see, Leonardo, we'll see." That night, as Leonardo pored over the documents he had taken from Catherine's safe, he found something that made his heart race. A yellowed envelope with his name written on it in his father's unmistakable handwriting. He opened it carefully, almost dreading what he might find inside. Inside the envelope were 2 sheets of paper. The first was his father's original will, dated just a few months before the accident. It clearly stated that all of the family's assets and property were to be divided equally between Lucy and Leonardo. There was no mention of Catherine, not even a small inheritance for her. But it was the second sheet that really took his breath away. It was a letter written by his father, addressed directly to him. The faded blue ink still carried the weight of the words that seemed to have been written as a prophetic warning. "My dear Leo, if you are reading this letter, something has probably happened to me. I sincerely hope that this is not true, but I have learned throughout my life that it is better to be prepared for the worst. I want you to know that I have always trusted your intelligence and strength of character. You are the future of our family, and I know that you will make the right choices when the time comes. However, I need to warn you about something important. I have been suspicious of Catherine for some time. She has always been ambitious, but recently I have realized that this ambition can cross dangerous lines. She has never accepted that your mother was my favorite or that I decided to secure our legacy for the two of you. If something seems wrong after I'm gone, investigate everything carefully. Do not trust anyone blindly, not even those closest to you. Take good care of your mother, Leonardo. She is the purest and kindest person I know. You two are the greatest gift that life has given me. Do not allow anyone to come between you. With all my love, Father." Leonardo felt tears well up in his eyes as he read his father's words. It was as if he were there by his side, guiding him through the darkness of those years of lies. The will proved that Catherine had falsified documents to steal what had never belonged to her. But the letter revealed something even more painful. His father knew she might try something like that, and yet he couldn't stop it from happening. How could she? Leonardo whispered, running his fingers over his father's signature on the will. How could she erase all of that? He knew he now had the definitive evidence against Catherine in his hands. The original will invalidated all the forgeries she had created, and his father's letter was proof that she had acted out of hatred and greed, betraying not only her family, but also the trust of those she loved most. Determined, Leonardo picked up his cell phone and called Carlos. "I need you to come here immediately," he said, his voice clear, firm but full of emotion. "I found something that will change everything." When the detective arrived, Leonardo showed him the will and the letter. Carlos was shocked to read Leonardo's father's words. "This is enough to destroy any argument Catherine could use in her defense," he said, carefully putting the documents away in his briefcase. "Now we have everything we need to expose the truth and bring justice." Leonardo nodded, holding the letter close to his chest. He finally understood the weight of his father's words and the legacy that had been stolen from him and his mother. But now he had a clear purpose: to take back what was theirs and rebuild the life Catherine had tried to destroy. "Let's end this," Leonardo said with renewed determination. "My mother deserves justice, and I'm going to make sure she gets it." With the evidence in hand and the truth finally exposed, Leonardo decided there was no more time to waste. He went straight to the Santa Clara Asylum to get Lucy. When he entered the simple room where she spent her days, he found her sitting on the bed, staring out the window with that same distant look he had noticed the first time. "Mom," he said softly, moving closer. "I know who you are, and I've come to take you home." Lucy turned her face away slowly, as if she needed a moment to process his words. Then tears began to stream down her wrinkled face. "Leo, is that really you?" "Yes, it's me," he replied, taking her trembling hand. and I promise I'll never let anyone tear us apart again." With the help of Carlos and a team of specialized doctors, Leonardo transferred Lucy to a high-quality rehabilitation clinic designed to help patients with physical and emotional trauma. The doctors explained that although years of isolation had taken a toll on her mental health, she was still capable of recovery with proper care. In the early days, Lucy seemed hesitant, as if she feared it was all just a dream from which she would soon wake up. But little by little, she began to open up. During one of the therapy sessions, while reviewing old memories with the help of psychologists, she mentioned something that made Leonardo pay attention. "There was a shed," Lucy murmured, her voice weak but full of emotion. "A place. In the middle of the wood, as Catherine took the car there." Leonardo frowned. "The car? You mean the car from the accident?" She nodded, her eyes full of pain. "She hid everything. She said it was to protect her family, but I knew it was to erase any evidence." Those words echoed in Leonardo's mind like thunder. He realized that this could be the final piece of the puzzle. The car from the accident, possibly containing crucial evidence that Catherine had tried to hide for decades. "Do you know where this shed is?" he asked, leaning forward. Lucy shook her head slowly. "Not exactly, but I remember tall trees and a rusty gate. It was near an old farm, Morning Sun Farm." Leonardo felt a shiver run down his spine. The name awakened something in him. He had heard of this abandoned property located on the outskirts of the city. It was a place shrouded in mystery and rumors of illegal activities in the past. "I will find this shed," he said, determined. "And I will find out what Catherine wanted so badly to hide." In the following days, Leonardo and Carlos began a meticulous search of the area. Using old maps and local information, they finally found their way to Morning Sun Farm. The property was in ruins, covered in dense vegetation and surrounded by an oppressive silence. At the back of the property, hidden among the trees, was an old shed with a rusty gate that looked exactly as Lucy had described. When they opened the shed, the still air inside seemed to carry the weight of decades of secrets. There, covered in dusty tarps and barely recognizable, was the car that had been involved in the accident. It was an old sedan, dented and faded with age, but still bearing clear marks from the impact. "This will prove everything," Carlos said, examining the vehicle. "If we can extract fingerprints or other traces, we can definitively confirm what happened that night." Leonardo looked at the car, feeling a mixture of anger and relief. This discovery would not only expose Catherine's lies, but it would also bring peace to him and his mother. Finally, the truth was about to come out, and this time, there was no escaping it. The discovery of the car in the shed was only the beginning of a series of revelations that would seal Catherine's fate. As Leonardo and Carlos searched the vehicle, they found something unexpected: an old diary hidden under the driver's seat. It was Lucy's. The yellowed pages were filled with notes detailing the days after the accident, including harrowing accounts of how Catherine had forced her into a private ambulance against her will. "I knew she didn't want to help me," Lucy wrote in one of the entries. "She was afraid I would tell her the truth about what really happened that night." With this new evidence in hand, Carlos was able to track down a former employee of the Solda Manha farm, a man named Jose, who had been working as a caretaker at the time of the accident. Although he was already elderly, Jose still remembered the incident vividly. "Yes, I saw everything," Jose said during the meeting arranged by Carlos at his small house on the outskirts of town. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "That night I heard screams coming from the road. When I got there, I saw the wrecked car and a woman trapped in the wreckage. It was Donna Lucy. She was hurt but alive. A little while later, another woman appeared. Catherine." Jose paused, as if still carrying the weight of that memory. Catherine was furious. She screamed at Lucy, saying she had ruined everything. Then she called some men who were with her and forcibly took her to an ambulance. I wanted to intervene, but they threatened me. They told me to forget what I had seen, or something bad would happen. Leonardo felt a tightness in his chest when he heard that. Finally, there was a witness confirming what he and Lucy had always suspected. With Jose's testimony, Lucy's diary, and the evidence found in the shed, The case against Catherine became irrefutable. The trial was widely covered by the media, becoming one of the most talked about cases in the region. The courtroom was packed when Catherine finally faced the charges. She tried to maintain her arrogant demeanor, but her face began to crumble as the evidence was presented. First, Leonardo's lawyer showed the original will and the letter written by his father, highlighting how Catherine had forged documents to take control of the family fortune. Then the medical and financial records were exposed, proving their illegal transfers and manipulations. Finally, Jose's emotional testimony and the excerpts read from Lucy's diary left everyone in the room breathless. "Not only did you steal my mother, but you also tried to erase the truth about our family," Leonardo said directly to Catherine during his final statement. His voice shook with anger and pain, but now, after so many years, the truth has finally come out, and you will pay for every lie you told. Catherine remained silent, unable to deny the overwhelming evidence. When the judge announced the sentence, finding her guilty of fraud, forgery of documents, and kidnapping, she lowered her head in defeat. She was sentenced to several years in prison and ordered to return all the assets and property she had embezzled. With justice served, Leonardo recovered everything that belonged to his family. But the greatest gift was not the fortune or the property. It was the reunion with his mother. Lucy continued her recovery in the specialized clinic, gaining strength with each passing day. They spent hours together, talking about the past and rebuilding the bonds that had been brutally broken. "I will never abandon you again," Leonardo promised, holding her hand during a sunny afternoon in the clinic's garden. Lucy smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "I always knew you would come for me, Leo. I always knew my boy would not forget me." As he watched his mother smile again, Leonardo realized that the truth was not just about justice or revenge. It was about healing old wounds and rebuilding what had been lost. And for the first time in decades, he felt like he was finally home. With the dust of the trial finally settled and the truth exposed, Leonardo found new clarity in his life. All of the family fortune and possessions had been returned, but that now seemed secondary to him. What really mattered was the lost time and the chance to make it up with Lucy. He decided to sell most of the properties he had inherited, including some of his hotel chain, to simplify his life and devote more time to his mother. He used the proceeds to buy a quiet house in the countryside, surrounded by lush gardens and lush trees. It was a place where Lucy could feel safe and loved, away from the shadows of her past. "You did all this for me?" Lucy asked when they first visited the house, her eyes shining with emotion. "I did it for us," Leonardo replied, smiling as he helped her walk across the lawn. "I want this to be our new beginning, a place where we can make new memories." The days that followed were filled with small moments of reconnection. They would spend entire afternoons sitting on the porch, recounting old stories, sharing laughs, and even a few tears. Lucy took up embroidery again, something she had loved to do before her accident, and Leonardo learned to cook the simple dishes she had used to prepare for him as a child. "This soup is almost as good as mine," Lucy joked one evening, tasting a bite of the meal he had prepared. "Almost?" Leonardo replied, feigning offense. "I guess you're going to have to teach me a few more things." In addition, Leonardo decided to use some of his fortune to help others who had been victims of similar injustices. He created a foundation to support institutionalized elderly people against abuse and fraud, ensuring that stories like Lucy's would not be forgotten. He also donated funds to renovate the Santa Clara Asylum, transforming it into a more humane and welcoming space. Lucy was deeply proud of her son's choices. "You are doing so much good, Leo. Your father would be very happy with the man you have become." This comment touched Leonardo deeply. He knew that his father would be there for them in some way, watching and smiling at the path they had walked together. As the months passed, Lucy's health continued to improve. She regained some of her independence and, most importantly, rediscovered her joy in life. For Leonardo, seeing his mother happy was the greatest gift he could receive. One afternoon, as they were walking in the garden, Lucy suddenly stopped and took Leonardo's hands. You know, my dear, for years I thought I would never see you again. But here we are, together again. This is all I ever wanted. Leonardo squeezed her hands tenderly. And that's all I've ever wanted too, Mom. Let's not waste another moment. From then on, they lived each day as a new blank page, ready to be written with love, hope, and overcoming. The truth had cost them dearly, but it brought with it a second chance that neither of them would ever take for granted. And so Leonardo and Lucy began to build not only a new life, but also a future full of promise, together. Did this story of overcoming injustice touch you? Leave a comment with your thoughts on this emotional reunion between Leonardo and his mother Lucy. And if you believe that stories like this need to be shared, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content that will touch your heart. Turn on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new emotional story like this. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that truth and love always prevail.